A brand new tank has arrived to tier 10 within World of Tanks console, and today's video and update news is going to showcase exactly what this tank is, along with some other information that we have regarding some other new tanks and also the bundles for next week. Let's jump into it and see exactly what this tank is about. So, first things first, what is the tank? Well, it's the SU-152 Taran, and as of the recording of this video and the publishing, you will be able to actually test out this tank. Now, this tank is a tier 10 Russian tank destroyer, or Soviet tank destroyer, you know how it is, and of course this one will be playing in tier 10 matchups. It's basically a premium version if you've ever played the Object 279E, if you've ever played the FV4201 Chieftain. Any of those, it's the same premise. It's a tier 10, it's a premium, it doesn't actually earn any more silver. It is just a case of you can basically purchase a tier 10 rather than grinding through and getting to a tier 10. This one is quite a novel one, however. As you can see, the actual tank itself looks somewhat novel and doesn't look like your typical tank within World of Tanks console, and I guess the nearest representation of this tank would be something like the SU-130 PM or the kind of, well, I think that's about it. I think there aren't really other tanks like it. I guess you could kind of equate it to the Scorpion G, although this one is a rear-mounted turret, and yeah, the SU-130 PM is just the best version, I think, to actually represent this. Obviously, what we've got here is a kind of glass cannon tank destroyer. You're not really going to be able to do a lot in terms of bouncing any rounds, and so this tank relies heavily on being able to shift around the battlefield, 63 kilometers an hour top speed forward. You've got a very good power to weight ratio for a tank destroyer. You've also got 1850 hit points, which is on the low side, I'm not going to lie. However, fairly in line with some of the other tank destroyers in the game. 5 degrees of gun depression's a little bit disappointing, but I guess you can't complain too much since it's probably better over the side of the tank, and we're not entirely sure how the gun depression works on this tank when you actually play it. Of course, if you've played in the Cold War game mode, this tank is kind of already in the game anyway, so I guess you can test that one out and let me know what you think of it. Now, what else do you get? Well, you get 2.7 second aim time, which is a bit disappointing. However, when you realise that the tank has 950 hit points worth of damage that it can deal, it's just under a Jaeger's Alpha, then this one is looking very, very fun to play, and hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on it to showcase whether or not it's actually worth it in the game to purchase this tank, or alternatively not purchase this tank, what's actually better for you and your wallet. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. 18.4 second reload, that's base, so you can probably get that down to about 30, well, I lie, 14 seconds I reckon, with the rapid loading perk, with gun rammer, etc. All of the perks and equipment that you can use, or skills, whatever you want to call them nowadays. But yeah, if you do that, you'll most certainly be able to get that down to about 14 or 15 second reload, which means you can effectively deal 4 shots a minute, and therefore you're going to be looking at about 3,700 DPM on average, roughly off the top of my head, and that is going to be a very, very good consistent way, because when you've got such high alpha damage, it makes for more effective damage per minute, because you only have to hit like 4 opponents to be able to deal your maximum damage. And with 303mm of standard penetration, you're probably not bouncing off a whole lot, and with 395 heat pen, you're probably not going to be bouncing off a lot either. Yeah, so this tank is looking like a very, very interesting one, and if you do decide to load HE in the tank, you have 1200 hit points worth of damage that you can deal with this one. And so if you're coming up against light tanks, or maybe some of the weakly armoured mediums, Batchat 25T, etc., 1200 alpha seems very, very nice to be able to hit. Of course, there are some disadvantages with the tank, being that the armor model is pretty trash, and so you're going to be getting penned almost all of the time. Let's see what Wargaming have actually say. Patience is your best attribute when playing this turreted tank destroyer. It's high penetration and alpha, can neutralize most opponents with relative ease. I kind of agree with that. Despite the reload time is so far, fire only when ready. Yeah, well, of course, Wargaming, you brilliant. This tank destroyer also gives you top speed. Thanks to its turret at the back, you can engage inefficient peek and boom gameplay. Once again, I agree, you can basically poke around a corner, only showing a minimal amount of your tank, so maybe you're probably not going to bounce the round if they do actually hit you, but it means you don't have to expose much of your tank to be able to do it. So corner fighting might actually be possible in this, so long as you know that you are 100% going to pen the opponent, or at least with like a very, very high percentage chance of doing so. And so yeah, really looking forward to seeing what it does. 0.37 accuracy is not necessarily the best, however, it's not the worst, and that will come down over time with the perks as well. And so I think it's really good one to actually test out within the game. Of course, if you do want to actually purchase this tank on the day of release, yeah, it's going to cost you 23,950 gold, or alternatively 24,900 gold. And so in the grand scheme of things, this tank in Great British pounds is about £70, or about $100 for one singular tank within World of Tanks. Now I can already tell you what my answer is it worth it? No, absolutely not. Is spending £70 on one tank ever worth it? In my opinion, obviously if you're earning £1 million a year, it doesn't matter because it's all relative, but for the majority of people, spending £70 on this tank is going to be a ridiculous amount, and I just don't agree with the high price tags that Wargaming do. They do it because they know that the whales will be spending their money on this game and spending the £70 on it, and unfortunately, if you are actually wanting to play this tank, you're going to have to spend £70 as well, which is, yeah, it's disappointing to say the least. And of course, if you are interested in the tank and you can't actually play it, or you can't pay that much for it, then yeah, it's kind of a bit of a disadvantage. And you never know, Wargaming will probably just release it for free at some point later on down the line, because it's exactly what Wargaming always do. Here, buy a tank for 70 quid, like 6 months down the line, they're like, well, you can have it free now. And then, like, yeah, just is so naff. But there we go, £70 for one singular tank. Yeah, never worth it in my personal opinion, but of course that is down to you and your spending habits. But yeah, I think there's definitely, if you haven't got much else on the game, there's a lot better ways of spending your money than on one singular tank. With that little rant over, let's actually look at some of the free tanks that you can get purchased within the game, and you don't actually have to spend any money, or at least you don't have to directly spend money to be able to purchase them. And they are, of course, the new Western Alliance heavy tanks, new being the kind of pretend word in this sentence, and it is basically the T-34 and the M103, along with a upgraded version of the M103 that we can see on screen in just a second. We'll run through these real quick. First one being the T-34 Heavy, coming off of the M46A1 pattern, so this is like the post-war era tanks on Cold War if you're interested in them. Of course, if you're not, just skip ahead to the next bit. But yeah, this tank looking like it's going to be an interesting one. T-34 on the World War II mode is probably one of my favourite premium tanks in the game. And then as you move through, you get the XP, you'll be able to unlock the M103A1, which is of course the era post-war tank that you'll see for the heavy line for the Americans basically. And this will cost you 4.4 million silver. It's going to be very similar to how the M103 plays. The turret armour is going to probably most likely get penned all of the time, as it does on World War II, so don't go thinking that this is probably going to be an outrageous heavy, but we never know, it might be. And then if you get the enough XP, 148,000 to be exact, you'll be able to get the M103A2, which is the next version of the M103. And you can see it on screen. It's almost got like this M60 kind of viewport slash searchlight that it's got on top of the gun. It kind of looks interesting. It's definitely one that would be an interesting one to get, but unfortunately you have to play Cold War. And of course you then have to grind out a ton of silver, that of which I'm not necessarily against, since someone's gifted me about 70 million silver, which is just unbelievable. Thank you, fat little Bernie. But yeah, really do appreciate that. And of course, let's move on to the next aspect of today's video. Hopefully that was a good rundown of the new tanks. There's not really much to say other than the fact that they're vehicles that are already in the game and that they're getting added to Cold War. Now, there is a variety of content that are also coming in addition to the new premium tanks and new actual Cold War tanks, and that is in the form of the contracts that Wargaming have added. They've added the centrifuge back into the game. Trust me, this is not really an interesting addition, and so I guess it's really only for you collectors. It's a mercenary tank, it's a mercenary contract. It's a really easy mercenary contract. If you want a tier 4 premium, I believe, then maybe go ahead and get it. Otherwise, I wouldn't really grind it out and really try and get it that much. You've also got the premium bonus, which is essentially a 1.5 times silver and 1.5 times XP when you're grinding towards certain tech tree lines. And I believe it's the STRV, the TVP, and one other tank line. Of course, you can check that out in-game on, to be honest with you, the STRV and the TVP are the ones that stand out because they're the ones that I would be going for, especially the TVP, because that is a tank that I believe is one of the most fun premium, not even premium tanks, but just actual tanks within the game that you don't have to spend any money for. And yeah, a tier 10 that has a 4-shot autoloader that can deal 1200 total damage. I'm never going to be complaining about that. So yeah, I really do like that tank, and I really do implore you guys to actually go out and get the TVP T5051. Then, of course, we get the lead by example operation, where you can get some extra gifts and goodies that you can basically complete. That's obviously on the challenge tab that you can view in game. And then we've also got the new tank of the month, which is the T6100, which is the it's basically a Tiger at tier 6. That's kind of, yeah, I don't know, spending $8.99 or $9.99 or whatever it is within the stores, both PS4 and Xbox One. I mean, if you want to do that, then go ahead. It's nothing really too special, and I guess it's just for the extras that you get on top of the tank itself. So I think you get 800 gold off the top of my head, of course. And yeah, it's kind of worth it if you want a premium tank that maybe you'll play, but ultimately you're buying it for the extras that you get alongside the tank as well. Then, of course, Tier 10 Double Silver Week. Now, this is a week that I would definitely, if you've got the TVP T5051, then I would combine the TVP with the Tier 10 Double Silver Week, and you'll be earning not only double silver, but you'll be earning the premium bonus alongside for playing the Tier 10 Czech tank. And then you'll also, if you've got premium time and you've completed the season, you can genuinely like stack like 3 times the silver without any actual silver boosters. So yeah, you could potentially, if you're using all of the silver boosters and all of these operations, to be able to get almost like 5 times silver on actual the game playing World War II. That's not even with playing the Cold War game mode, which is really, really interesting. I'm going to try out a video where we do exactly that and see how much silver we can actually earn in the World War II game mode using these examples as we've talked about. Now then, for those of you that have probably stick around to this point in the video, we're going to take a look at the bundles and what is actually worth it. And before you probably leave, I want to kind of focus on what your opinions are on the actual bundle pricing, because we talked about the SU-152 Taran and how much it actually costs. And to be honest with you, I don't know if maybe it's just because, I don't know, I'm tight and I don't want to spend £70 on one singular tank, or whether it's just the general consensus that £70 for a single tank on a game that is technically free and that you would be spending 1.5 times the price of a full price game on Xbox is ridiculous. Then yeah, I guess you can join the club. But for those of you who don't, I want to kind of get your opinion. Even if you do kind of share the same opinion, I kind of like to see what you guys actually think about the pricing. And of course, there are various different pricing that all of these bundles are going to have. And in my personal opinion, buying a premium tank bundle with like 4 premiums is way better than buying one, because you literally get 4 times the enjoyment, because over time you'll play those 4 different tanks a lot more than you'll play the one tank. And if you don't like the one tank that you've just paid £70 for, then you're going to be very, very disappointed and you're going to want your money back. But because it's Wargaming, they don't actually offer a refund, or at least a tester to see whether you do actually enjoy the tank itself. So yeah, spend 70 quid, you may or may not like it. There you go. If you don't, that's unlucky for you, you spent £70. Otherwise, yeah, well done, you spent £70 and you get a premium tank that you do like. I guess that's kind of Wargaming's mentality. But of course, we then have the bundles that are coming out, so let's actually look into them and which ones are the worst ones, which ones are the best ones in terms of the actual competitive tanks, and maybe about the fun as well that you can get from them. First one being the SU-152 Primed bundle, the T-72 Ural and the M60A1 Rise passive. All tanks that, I don't know, it might be worth it if you really want to have a load of gold on your account and you want to purchase them, but for me, probably not. Devastation Squad, we've got the Scorpion G, the Slayer SU-152 and the Yahtzee. All of them could be very interesting. The Slayer is a fantastic tier 7. It's got 750 alpha damage at tier 7 and fires like an absolute monstrosity. So yeah, it's a fun one. The Scorpion G, we all know it. It's the £1 million tank from PC. It's overpowered. It's really, really strong. If you're a good player, you can make this thing just demolish the enemy team. And yeah, it's just a fantastic one to learn and get good at playing tank destroyers and learning camo and all of those various different aspects of World of Tanks. And this tank is definitely the one to go with. And then you have the Yahtzee, which is a very interesting one. I actually showcased a video on World of Tanks PC on the second channel that I have that I will link at the end of this video. And it was a bloke that took on 8 opponents with this singular tank on his own, completely on his own, 1 versus 8. It was an amazing replay. But yeah, the Yahtzee WZ121GFT on PC is certainly really good. So I'd actually like to test this one out and see whether we can make it work on console and kind of emulate what we saw on the PC video. Of course, you don't have to check that one out. It's just kind of highlighting the fact that this tank is actually quite good. And yeah, I guess that this is a very good bundle for those of you who maybe don't have any of these tanks and want to try out tank destroyers. They are all very good, kind of promising tanks, and I think probably for the around 14,000 gold mark or lower, it would be a fairly okay purchase, I guess. Then we have Hidden Strikers, E25, the broken one, Vindicator Charioteer, which is a kind of a fairly strong one, and the HMH ISU 130, all of which are fairly okay within the game. Are they super overpowered? Probably not. And then bundled in as well is the Audace Cannon d'Assalto de 105, which is the AMX CDC kind of 105 essentially. It's a tank destroyer. Is kind of interesting. I think it's actually a fairly competitive one, very underrated, I think, in my personal opinion. And for all of them, you're probably looking at the price tag of about 14,000 or lower, like the previous one, would be an okay price if it is that within the game. Of course, you can check it out and decide whether you want to purchase any of them. Unstoppable Might is the next one. I probably wouldn't recommend this bundle. It's going to be very expensive, and the tanks that you get in them are okay, but they're not necessarily very fun tanks. 50 TP prototype is good. Paladin Carnarvon Action X is okay, but it was a free tank that you could get, and that will probably come out as well again for free in a earn operation for a month. Probably in the next couple of months I would expect the Paladin comes back for free. And then the Barracuda Emile 1951 is a good one and actually fun. And then the Bear KV122 is just kind of like that typical IS slash KV85 slash, you know, that sort of playstyle that you can kind of emulate with free tanks, so you don't really need a premium version of it. And yeah, I guess that just determine whether or not it's worth it for you. Attacking Force then, Patriot T26E5, Chieftain T95, Scourge, and the HMH AMX 1357. This is the dog crap bundle for the week, the one that I would avoid. I don't think any of these tanks are particularly amazing. The Patriot is to a degree fairly okay, but the rest of them have kind of just been left at the wayside. They're kind of tanks that were okay when they first got released into the game, but have become slowly more and more power crept by the more recent premium tanks that are in the game, and I don't think that they're particularly that much fun. AMX 1357 is certainly a tank that could be fun with its machine gun, the 10-shot autoloader that it does get, but with only 75 alpha damage per shot, and with very mediocre pen, and with a I guess it's hard to play in terms of, for the majority of players, you're probably not going to enjoy it that much anyway. So yeah, not particularly a bundle that I'd go for, and probably the worst one of the week. And then we come in with the quad aces, the Sherman VC Firefly, Bear KV122 and the Tiger 217 and the Minuteman. All 4 tanks are really good, definitely ones that are okay. competitive at the respective tiers, and I think that this would be probably a pretty competitive price as well. So yeah, there's always that. And then Victorious 7s, the Minuteman T29 and the Bear KV122, both of which I think are very good tanks, like we've highlighted before. The Minuteman is especially really good, kind of borderline overpowered, to be honest with you, and we've done a video on the Minuteman, so just go back into the gameplay and tank reviews where we look on the playlist that is at the end of the video, and you can see what the Minuteman can actually do in the game and determine whether you want to purchase it. It should be fairly cheap, to be honest. You're probably looking at like 6,000 gold for both of them, which would be an okay price. And then you're looking at heavy starters, which I'm not even going to cover because it's just low tier premiums. And then the new alliances, the FCM 50T, terrible at the moment, just power crept to heaven. And then the VK7501K, which is, I don't know, pretty mediocre slash okay in some kind of players' hands, but yeah, probably better to play some other premiums or just tech tree tanks as well. And then you've got the discounts on premium, 50% off 360 days of premium. I would recommend this if you are wanting to purchase premium time. Now is the time. 50% off, 12,000 gold, costs you like 30 something pounds, but it's like, if you equate it to how much a beer's worth, you're paying literally like 3/4 of a pint at the pub every single month. So yeah, and for the amount of benefit it will give you if you actually play World of Tanks properly and you're going to be playing it for the entire year, then I would recommend it. It's probably the most worth thing that you could spend your money on, World of Tanks. And yeah, just do that if you're interested in spending money and you haven't got anything else in the game, and that is the first thing that you want. If you've already got it, obviously don't listen to me, just do whatever you want with your money, or just save it and not spend any. To be honest, it's probably the better option. But there we go. That's kind of the deals of the week and the bundles that you can see within this week on World of Tanks. And of course, tell me about what you thought of the bundles as well. And of course, let me know what you think of the brand new tank that we have. And one last thing before we go, there is the personal offers section, and there are two really good ones that I almost missed. And for those of you that are still sticking around, I guess it's kind of a bonus. The T3488, a fantastic tier 6 premium that I will be purchasing as the personal offer. And the LT432, a really good tank that I have got a kind of novel tank review idea that I'm going to be doing in the LT432 and showcasing what this tank can kind of do in the game. So stay tuned for that as well. And hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to like it and check out that playlist of the gameplay and tank reviews to check out the Minuteman. And of course you can check out some of the other videos on screen right now as well. I hope to join you there in those videos, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.